Welcome back to Tokyo on Fire. You know, one of the favorite themes of Tokyo on Fire is Japanese politics. We talk about it all the time. It permeates everything. And those are the things that we like to watch. Politics invites strange bedfellows, and that is nowhere more accurate than it is here in Japan, particularly now. We have an election for the upper house coming up in July. We're looking forward to that. There's a lot of dynamics going on, and the suggestion that perhaps there will be a double election, meaning that the lower house will be closed at the same time. Michael, this is a pretty big deal. There are a lot of alliances being formed now. Some of the parties that have been formed are disappearing. There's a little bit of scrambling around, and not just at the upper house, at the lower house as well.
What we're seeing is the result of the basic law having to do with funding elections. Elections are publicly funded, in part here.
Right.
And in order to be eligible, you have to have a party. An individual running as an independent has no pull.
You have to register. I have a party. I have a group of people.
I have at least 5 legislators in the House of Representatives and Councilors together, or I received a certain percentage of the vote in the last election, that your group is eligible for public funding is something that leads to a lot of scrambling and a lot of friend-making in the months leading up to the January 1st start of the year. After that, there is a short interregnum, and then people start thinking about the election. But in this case, the election's really close in July. And so this building up of parties and splintering of parties that happened in December is now being reversed, and there's a new scramble now.
It's interesting because we saw a lot of movement, especially in Osaka, and the disagreement between the Osaka Innovation Party and the Tokyo Innovation Party, and there was a split even before Christmas, before the New Year's. And now we're in the new year, and we're seeing a completely new dynamic going.
Yeah, well, the Tokyo side of the Innovation Party forged an alliance with the DPJ, the main Democratic Party of Japan, the main opposition, which is, of course, appropriate since many of the people in that Tokyo branch actually are old DPJ members who's left the party and hung out with the Osaka people thinking that was going to be the new force in Japanese politics. It didn't turn out that way, and now they're coming back to home, but they want to have a separation. At the same time, that same JIP has formed an alliance last week with a group called the Assembly to Energize Japan. That was the name of the party, which had 5 members. And
dynamically energized.
Yes, dynamically energizing the people. And that alliance ceased to be as of yesterday because one of the members of that party, this energized party, flew the coop. So they're joining, trying to make some kind of electoral alliance here, and it's really become a farce.
So what this means is that at the end of December, the political parties are set, and if there is an election, you, depending on how many members you have, get this much in funds based on your numbers.
No, there doesn't even have to be an election. Well, there has to be an election, but you are going to get this amount of money for the year 2016. At the end of 2015, whatever your party membership is, you get a proportional amount in terms of your public funding for election purposes.
Right.
And that is fixed by your party numbers on December the 31st.
Okay, so these parties now go into the new year, and now as a party they're jockeying for position, they're trying to form alliance and get buddies. The money that they have for an election is attractive to their alliance partner because they can blend this, they can join this, and they can use that money for a more vibrant election campaign?
That's right, and the reason why they join is for reasons of having some kind of, to cobble together some kind of majority within a district.
Right.
If you have all kinds of opposition parties running against each other, or even if they are not directly competing, the fact that this person is from the Genki party or this person's from the DPJ will mean that the supporters of the other party will stay away. You try to unify. So it looks really cynical, and because it is. It's a run for the money in the fall, and then immediately they shift gears and start thinking, how do we survive the election?
Right.
And you wonder in the process what happened to the word policy.
Right.
What happened to having a core philosophy. It doesn't matter.
Sure, sure, and you see that on these pronouncements and on the manifestos that are produced. I mean, there are manifestos that try and distinguish the different parties. Has that fallen out of favor now? Are people still producing these manifestos?
Well, you have to have something to put on the website, and everybody has a website now, at least. Usually, the contents are often just discombobulated, whatever. But especially in the micro parties where no one really cares, it's just the sheer cynicism toward the electorate when they're facing an election is really something that's quite breathtaking.
Well, you have the LDP, which is huge, and you have the opposition parties that are not very huge. There are a lot of them, and so the idea here is to cobble together an alliance without going into a merger. Is that right? If there's a merger, does one of them lose the campaign money that they had dedicated to them if there's a merger?
No, the money still gets there.
Okay.
Somebody has the seal of the party. And the party becoming disbanded does not mean that the money that they would have received disappears. Whoever has the registration for the party will get that money.
Okay, so that was the big fight with the Osaka and the Tokyo branches.
That's right. They really wanted to get the registration to break the party apart. But the Tokyo branch held the registration and said, you guys can't leave until you give us X, whatever. We don't know what the deal was, because they eventually came to a deal and broke the party in two. Everything now is focused on the election. We're seeing the LDP staking out a lot of positions. We saw that in the fall with the creation of the new three arrows.
Right.
That's sort of not gone anywhere for the LDP, so they're trying out now constitutional revision as a possible theme. Some in the LDP have some reservations about that, but Abe and the main body of the party seem to be all bought into that. The forces of opposition, they're looking for their theme. Their theme might be that there is a division within Japanese politics. The LDP now represents the anti-constitution party.
We are the opposition.
We are the opposition that's for preserving constitutionalism. We may believe different things about the Constitution, whether it should be amended or not, but we do believe that procedures have to be according to established procedures. Now that, I don't see voters turning out for that.
No, that doesn't even strike me as very, I mean, maybe if it was AKB 48, then that might be something a little bit more attractive. But yeah, that particular theme of just we are the opposition, we want to protect the Constitution, not like those guys, that doesn't really seem to have much of a hook.
The party with the strongest association with protecting the Constitution is the Socialist Party.
Right.
And they're on their deathbed. They are down to their very, very last representatives. And that used to be the number 2 party in the country. It's not a big vote getter. And we have to think about what is it that could drive non-aligned voters, persons who have not committed to either any of the machine parties, either the LDP, the Komeito, or the communists who have their machines. How do you get the folks who are the majority, in fact?
Well, you have those people who are dedicated to parties and those who I don't know or I don't care or I'm not voting or whatever. They're huge. I mean, in comparison, they are the majority.
They are the least the plurality. They are the people who don't know or don't care are the largest group of voters. If you can claw back some of them,
to them,
how to get them into the voting booths, you have something that can fight the LDP machine. As it is, the current DBJ by itself, or these ideas that they've been talking about a broad coalition, just don't have it.
Strange bedfellows indeed. What are the strangest political parties that you have seen come across over the last, 12 months or so? I mean, there's some really wacky ones, aren't there?
Well, the party to energize the citizenry is that's gone. Too bad. But we have, we have the People's Livelihood, People's Life Party, and Taro Yamamoto and Friends.
Okay. He wants to include his friends. That's the formal name of the party.
That's the formal name of the party. And, 2 ands there. And that has 5 legislators, so it just barely meets the criteria for a party.
There are sports parties. There are parties for...
There used to be, and that was the thing about the House of Councilors. It used to be the joke election.
Right.
And people didn't give a darn about it. It's significant now because of constitutional revision, because of the time when the opposition controlled the upper house and therefore could block efforts of the lower house, even if it was controlled by the LDP Komeito coalition. They could run up against the brick wall of the House of Councilors.
Right.
That made the House of Councilors significant, but even so, the run for the cash at the end of the year has created some absolutely crazy named parties.
Right.
Oh, the party that respects the Japanese heart, that's one of them. And it's only to get the money. And once they get the money, they're going to flow into the LDP in order to be a stronger electoral force for themselves.
We hit on this issue all the time here on Tokyo on Fire. What's your current pronouncement? What's your current prediction about a double election happening at the same time, or the election for the lower house, the prime minister closing the house voluntarily, forcefully, and having it have an election at the same time as the upper house?
Well, a lot of people like saying, Michael, you always get this wrong. And I don't mind that. My view is that the incentives for a double election are really, really strong. And there's really no reason not to do it, even if the Komeito doesn't like it to do it. And they don't. They really don't like to have to do anything that increases their burdens of coordination. But the idea that you can put the change in the consumption tax, the way it's going to be calculated, to the voters and say, aha, you see, the entire voting public has endorsed what we have done.
Right.
Great. If you in any way do any kind of act having to do with TPP, you say we need the voters' endorsement. You have the excuse to throw that election. And if there is an election involving both houses, it will absolutely devastate the very bare bones opposition that exists. They just don't have the candidates. They just don't have the money to fight two elections at once.
Well, the lower house just passed the supplemental budget for 2015. It will now go to the upper house. It's got lots of little bennies in there for people who are...
Incredible amount of bennies.
Right, and it makes you fall in love with the party that's in power, doesn't it?
Well, to at least temporarily be infatuated with it. The money that's being given out to seniors, the 30,000 yen per month, that is, the opposition's absolutely right. That's buying votes.
Sure.
And you are doing nothing in terms of stimulus to the economy in that. It is simply buying those votes. And yet, there's no way to stop it. It's done. It's a done deal. You can scream about it on television. You can go on the line. You can do whatever. Tweet about it. Facebook, whatever. It's not going to change a darn thing. It's going to happen.
Right. Well, I think that's one of the reasons why we have Tokyo on Fire. We're watching these things as they develop, and we report on them. We analyze them and try and give you predictions on what's going to happen. And I think you can expect this summer to be a very exciting summer. The spring leading up to it, the election, there will be still a lot to talk about in anticipation of this election. I agree with you, Michael. It'll be a double election. It might not be on the same day.
It has to be on the same day.
Well, it might not be, though.
Why? How could that be? That they could actually do that? I mean, technically, you're right.
And it's happened before. They've had an upper house election, and then 3 months later, they've had a lower house election.
Yeah, you really would be in danger in a House of Reps election of being accused of running elections solely in order to increase your own power. And suddenly those people who had previously had no interest in politics, whom we were trying to keep away, suddenly would come and say, this really stinks.
Okay, but Komeito really is not so in favor of a double election. They would rather not have it. They would like to have the LDP reliant upon them. And the LDP playing its cards right, it really doesn't need to have 2/3 to be really cool. And that means we don't have to have a coalition partner. We can do it all by ourselves. We don't need to win 2/3. We just need 51% in both houses.
That's the story that no one wants to talk about, and I'm not going to talk about it.
Okay. Stay tuned. We will talk about it some more, whether Michael wants to or not.